guess what I forgot to do?
Switch out the opening.
Oh, we should just go to Voices from the Edge every day because that's kind of where we're living, right?
Okay, on the edge.
On the edge, yeah.
Everybody, it's Happy Wednesday. We the People Unite, our flagship live. Say hey, hey, hey. We have a full house today. So Keisha, August is back. Say yay! We're going to get August on the move. And then Maureen and Anitra, Roseanne, Katie, Lori, Momo, and Andrea. So we do have a full house today. If you're in the chat, let us know. You know, we love to talk with you about all these topics. We have a serious topic today, I think. It's serious. I believe it's serious because women, we need to focus on what's going on. So we are going to take a look at a plan that says it wants to strengthen families and reverse declining birth rates. But when you actually break it down, much of the focus isn't on lowering the cost of raising a child. It's on defining what a family should look like and the roles within that family. The report explicitly links women's education, career paths, independence to declining birth rates. It's always our fault for some reason. And that raises a real concern about whether the solution being proposed is support or limitation or flat out oppression. Because if families today are struggling with childcare and housing and healthcare, can we really say that we're supporting them if we're not addressing those realities at all?
Nope.
Because supporting families isn't about turning back the clock. It's about making it possible to build a life in a world that we live in now. And we're going to talk a little bit about that nostalgia that these men seem to have for the 1950s. And as a media scholar, we're going to talk about that a little bit because what was on TV was not reality. We'll talk about that.
Oh, no, far from it.
So very far from it. So I'll kind of put on my media hat when we get to that point. We have about Velshi laid this out in an MS Now segment that I thought was very good. And what I'm going to do is play pieces of that throughout the live today and talk about different aspects of it, as well as go to the report itself, because the report itself is very telling. And the charts they have in there are very telling. And again, we'll talk more about that. But is this what they want? Is this what they're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So taking women back to a time, oh my God, how many years did we fight for the right to vote, the right to have independence, to right to work, the right to have our own credit card in our name, the right, all these rights for independence. And it's now men and some women going along with it, obviously, want to take those rights away.
A lot of Christian groups, I hate to say it, but I even grew up, that looked like something that could have been pulled from one of the magazines that I grew up on. It's this holistic, the woman, the mother, and with the buildings in the back and the laptop and the child.
Yeah. I did a bit of a deep dive on this with like the Heritage Foundation combined with the MS Now video you're going to show. And the thing I found ironic about the women that are in leadership on like the Heritage Foundation, they look like they're in charge of groups that like care about family and care about kids. And like, it's all kind of this facade. Because then when you go and research those groups that they're a part of, it's all just propaganda again. Because people in the United States are now so used to not just, they'll read a title and be like, oh, it must be true. Mm-hmm. Rather than go into details.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's why I thought it was important to go into those details. So there's going to be some education for all of us in this and for myself, because I wanted to see what was actually in the report versus what are the sound bites that we always hear. So let's play the first couple minutes or so of Velshi, and then we'll come out. I want to show a little bit of the report. We'll kind of talk about where they're heading with all of this. Is it for me?
I'm sorry.
That's
I don't. People must know to call me then.
they call you just so they can hear
I don't know
their
who
call coming across. All right, let's listen.
Project 2025 actually never went away. If you thought that the Heritage Foundation,
Hello.
the group behind the radical governing blueprint known as Project 2025, was finished dismantling American democracy, think again. Now they're turning their sights even more keenly on America's women. The same movement that drafted a plan to remake and undo much of the federal government has now unveiled a chilling new manifesto, one that is aimed at making it harder for women to work, harder for them to live independently, and easier to push them back into financial dependence on husbands or fathers. This is not hyperbole. In the same way that Project 2025 wasn't hyperbole, though plenty of critics dismissed it as such, especially as Trump himself disingenuously disavowed it. 1 year into Trump's second term, groups tracking his administration say that roughly half of Project 2025 has already been implemented. That includes dismantling federal diversity and inclusion programs, dramatically expanding immigration enforcement, rolling back environmental protections, eliminating federal funding for public broadcasters like NPR and PBS, and so much more. That blueprint also called for authorizing military troops to help seal the border, removing immigration enforcement protections from places like schools and churches, and dramatically expanding immigration detention facilities. If there's one lesson to take from all of this, it's this. Do not underestimate the determination of this movement or its hostility toward liberal values and the expansion of democratic rights for groups that they see as outsiders. And they see women as outsiders.
Okay, so we're going to come back to that. Why do they see us as outsiders, for heaven's sakes? Why are they afraid of us?
Because they're
Psychosis.
They're
Expand, Anitra.
It does. I don't understand it. I really don't know. I usually have an answer, but I just don't know why they would see us as outsiders. I think they see us as less than, and throughout history, we have been less than, but it's just like, well, we're just going to put them back where they're going to be. And you're not just moving us around. We're not pieces on a board. And we have depth and breadth, and, you know, and we do different things. So make it so that we can do what we do and still survive it, like you said, in this day and age, not 1950, 60, 70 standards, because it's not going to work.
Yeah, and keep in mind that women are the majority, actually, especially in the United States. There are more women than men. And that's the reason why they really want to have that baby boom, is because of the fact that, you know, women are not having babies as much, or frequent, you know, not settling down. They're having babies later in life and everything. But they're really scared that men will be extinct eventually because, you know, women are not producing them as much as they want.
and
Plus,
it's,
they got to have kids to steal
Yeah.
so that they can get them for the islands.
oh God.
I
Yes,
believe that anyone who opposes their ideology, they look at as an outsider. So it wouldn't matter who you were. It's, you know, it doesn't have to be a specific minority group, doesn't have to be specifically women. I think it's just anyone who opposes their ideology.
And if you watched Don's show today, he had a poll up from CNN that everybody who is in the MAGA movement, not Republicans, in the MAGA movement, 100% approves of Donald Trump and this administration. And that is scary.
Did you know the Nazis and Hitler created Aryan children? They took girls that were Aryan look, that had long blonde hair or blonde hair, and had them have babies to have what they considered a perfect civilization.
Eugenics.
I bring this up because it's really scary, isn't it? Because that's where it feels like our country is going right now.
Let,
I know that
go
would happen.
ahead.
No,
Yeah, finish up your comments. I want to go to the report.
Yeah, it's just beyond reality.
Well, let me, I want to say this, Kim,
Yep.
is what I noticed is Donald Trump, they want to control women. And what he said was a lot of us are on programs that help us, whether it be food stamps or SNAP programs or whatever kind of government program assistance. And he think the solution is going back into the home with men, but they forgot that the reason we wanted to get out of these homes is because these men were either abusive or drunks or lazy. And so we wanted a better life, and they don't want us to have a better life, is how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. Like I was fortunate to grow up with a father that wanted girls and supported us 100%. He was our softball coach. He was our bowling coach. He defended us back and forth. And he, even back, I was born in the 1970s, and even back then, that was kind of really weird because most men wanted to have boys.
Well, I'm lucky too. My dad was a wonderful father to both girls and boys, and I'm realizing that didn't occur for a lot of women in their homes. I also am from very strong women on my mother's side, incredibly strong. And so I didn't realize that, but now I really appreciate it at this point in my life when I see what other women have suffered over the years.
Yeah, great comments. My dad wanted a boy too. I could have been named Teddy Lou.
Damn.
Are you kidding me? Really? For Theodora, because his name was.
Katie, you are correct in saying that these white men from that Pocahontas, but honestly, it's a lot of women that is supporting this BS.
Yeah, and that's that's scary. When I was talking about looking at like the Heritage Foundation website and seeing all these women who are like they're so educated and qualified, but like if any of you have seen The Handmaid's Tale, either read the book or seen the show, one of the creators of that whole Gilead was a woman. And
correct.
in it, she then gets kicked out of everything because she's a woman, but she's like, wait, I helped create this. They're like, we don't care, you're still a woman. So it's just frustrating.
It's men taking their physical strength and trying to bully us. That what it boils down to. A lot of the women that are backing their husbands, that they're educated and everything. When it comes down to the end of the day, when they're in private and stuff, I hate to say it, but they're emotionally abused. They're mentally abused. They could be physically abused, but it really is how they've actually grown up and been treated along the lines. I think that has a big impact in their decisions.
Are you saying
can we go back? I'm sorry, Kim. Can we go back to Momo's comment, because I think that is spot on as well. She said they're scared of working under a woman. They can't handle that most women are more educated.
Yep.
And really, we are. We have we have graduate degrees. We have postgraduate degrees.
Yep.
All of that for the simple reason that in order for us to be taken seriously, we had to have alphabet soup after our names.
And think how much harder as women we had to work for those degrees to be taken seriously, even doing all of that.
Yes.
The school of hard knocks.
Yes.
Yeah, really.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say it was two men that gave me the opportunity to get into management, though. And of course, there's a lot of good men out there, but it's hard. It was hard. Yeah.
Yes. And it still is. It still
Oh,
is.
absolutely still is. Yeah, and we could talk about that. I had someone I took over. I was managing data centers back then, and he says, "I don't." It was an older man. "I don't work for you. I work with you." And I said, "You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. I also write your performance reviews."
Yeah,
Right.
I was going to say that was my hubby that said that, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so let's dig into the report too. We're going to go kind of back and forth, a little education, a little fact checking, and then back to Velshi. So, what they're saying is this is saving America. Everything is saving America. You know, the Save Act.
From what?
Saving
Yeah.
America by saving the family, a foundation for the next 250 years. To end America's family crisis, policymakers and civic leaders should treat restoring the family home as a matter of justice driven by two truths. The first is that all children have the right to the affection and protection of the man and woman who created them. Agree? The second is that the ideal environment in which to exercise this right is in a loving and stable home with their married biological parents. In contrast, the default in American culture today is to put the desires of adults over the needs of children. Children are too often called to sacrifice what is due to them, the presence of their mom and dad under the same roof for entirety of their childhood. We're going to talk about that. The three key takeaways are: the family is the foundation of civilization and marriage. The committed union of one man and one woman is the cornerstone. It is the seedbed of self-government. We're going to talk about that. The question that will determine the course of America's future is what happens to a nation when its citizens largely stop having children and eschew marriage. The only way for America to thrive in the future is to rebuild the family, which can only happen with societal commitment to revive the institution of marriage. Just want to talk about that for a second before we move on. How many of you, if anybody, and in the audience, were raised with parents who were abusive or who fought like cats and dogs? Who were in an environment that you had to cry and hide under a bed, or had to go to bed at night afraid, or any of those things? Is that the kind of environment that we want our kids to live in? It wasn't how I wanted to live. I was so grateful when my parents divorced when I was 8. What are your stories about that? I want to hear. We want to hear. Anybody?
My parents did get divorced. I will say that people was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I was like, "Don't be. Best thing ever happened to us." I don't mean to put all my business out here, but it was just there was ebbs and flows. It wasn't a constant everyday thing. There was some goodness in the middle of it, and that's what's so confusing about it all. But I know a lot of things didn't happen because of him being a man and being protected under the guise of being a man and the head of the household and a public figure.
So one of the reasons why I don't have children, I will soon be of the age where I will not be able to have children, even if I wanted to. And there's many reasons why I decided not to have children. But one of the things that scared me when I thought about it is, would I have a partner who would share the responsibility of raising a child equally? Because even though I grew up with 2 parents, I saw that the brunt of child rearing often fell on my mom and my stepmom. And that terrified me. Just the idea. And you see other people whose fathers left, started new families, or just disappeared. And I feared having that for myself. And I know that there are good men out there, like Maureen said, who share the responsibility of child rearing, but that terrified me that I could end up being on my own raising children, and I did not want to deal with that.
And going through all the things that go along with that co-parenting, and I did watch other people. I don't have any children either. I've helped raise a lot, but I don't have any of my own. And a lot of it's in that, some of it's biological, but they also need to concentrate on clean water and, like you said, health care and things like that. Not putting the toxic dumping in the ground so that people can have the baby, so they don't have all these different ailments that go along with our environment issues.
Mom.
Well, I grew up.
Go ahead, Marley.
I grew up in a family situation that was verbally abusive, physically abusive, and like Nitra said, it wasn't every day, but it was enough for me to, when I got older, to not want to have children. One, it's because it didn't fit the lifestyle that I wanted, and two, I didn't want to pass on that generational trauma as well. I also saw I never wanted to get married because I saw my mother get definitely verbally abused. Not let my father would hit her, but it was more like restraining, and cornering her, and financial abuse where she had to beg for money for herself. And so I agree that that children need to be raised in a very stable, nonviolent environment, something that supports them and doesn't traumatize them, where they carry that trauma throughout their life.
Seeing Trump as a father figure is enough to make you not want children.
Nah. Yeah, I grew. The thing too is like, my parents fought and everything, and I thought it was like the worst thing in the world. But they weren't physically abusive, mentally abusive, or anything. Usually it was over money. My dad was a school teacher, and he raised 4 kids, and he was a great dad. My mom was a great mom. But when I got into my marriage, my girls, even to this day, they're 24 and 22, is like, wish you got divorced, because I got into really bad arguments with him. I was making the money, he was a stay-at-home dad, and I felt resentment a little bit, but I look at it now like we're in a great place. We stayed for our kids. Our kids are doing great. I wish we could go back and change those mistakes, but at the end of the day, we both had this commitment of saying we had kids together. We're going to raise our kids together, and that's the bond we have. Like, and now we're great, we're friends and everything, but it is how strong you are as a person and how you can actually be able to co-parent that makes a difference, and I feel bad for my daughters who are like, oh, you guys should have got divorced, because we're all traumatized. But I'm like, okay, Alex, you got a full scholarship to UTD in Texas. You graduated college with minimal debt. Your sister went to Boston U, did the same thing. What did we do wrong? And you guys are living on your own in your early 20s.
Well, we're gonna talk about the economics part of this, because I think a lot of pressure that is put on families is economics. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but I also want to talk about this aspect, and let me put this back up. So right here, in many respects, a strong family dependent on God and one another is itself a declaration of independence. It advances the cause of liberty by minimizing the need for government in daily life. In the mortal words of John Adams, our Constitution was made only for the moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. I want to talk about this John Adams quote real quick, because we have to remember the time in which it was stated. So what Christian nationalists love to do with that quote is say, see, our country was built on the foundation of Christianity and religion and etc. John Adams did make that comment, but if the scholars in doing the research would interpret what he meant today, what he's saying is, because context really matters, that the Constitution depends on a population capable of self-restraint and ethical behavior. Otherwise, no system of laws alone can hold it together. So that's a bit of a different interpretation than what they are. And I'm curious, any historians or people who did a lot of research in that area, if you agree or disagree with that interpretation. And then we'll move on.
I'm just very tired of these white Christian nationalists treating everything that the founding fathers have said like gospel. Like, these were not perfect men by any means. And like, they just seem to forget, about how George Washington and Thomas Jefferson owned slaves and plantations, and that this country was actually founded on religious freedom and not just being a Christian nation. And it's
you can't say Christian when you stole it. Let's start out there. Thou shalt not steal. So you started out stealing.
Yeah, and it's just like I'm so tired of them just playing like word games with all of these quotes when they're not looking into the deeper context.
Well, Nietzsche, not just stealing, they were also killing.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I was just naming the first one. A whole lot of other stuff. You know what D.L. Hughley said the other day on his show? He said, yeah, there were some good people. He said, I'm sure Thomas Jefferson loved Sally Hemings, but he also owned her children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I think if they really cared about women, they would have created ways that we could have a path to whether we want to be married or single, that we'd have the time off at work and get the pay for being off of work, and having daycare centers, I think, that are open 24 hours that are oversaw by the government.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that because other countries are doing that successfully.
Yeah.
Very successfully. So we're going to talk about that. All right, let's listen to a little bit more as we move forward with this.
Their latest document, Saving America by Saving the Family, a foundation for the next 250 years. You got to give it to these people. They think big. It was published in January. Its purported goal is to reverse the country's declining birth rate. And you can't physically force women, if you can't physically force women to have babies, which is what abortion restrictions aim to do, you can design government policies that pressure women into having more babies. Not exactly rocket science, at least not from the perspective of the ordinary caveman. You cut off opportunities outside the home. You make the public sphere hostile to women's independence. You create a system where the only viable path left for women is dependence on a man for survival. In other words, you drag the country back to a time when women had fewer choices. If Project 2025 laid out how a conservative administration could reshape the machinery of government, this new blueprint lays out the social vision behind it, a plan for what American family life should look like. And when you strip away the soft language about family values, what its proposals would actually accomplish, if carried out, is the rollback of decades of women's freedom. According to its authors, the reason women are having fewer children is simple: feminism. The Heritage Foundation blames the feminist movement for encouraging women to rethink their relationship to men, marriage, children, and family. According to the document, quote, those two forces, big government liberalism and second wave feminism, combined to radically change how men and women thought about their roles in the home, end quote. In other words, women today have too many choices. Your daughters and granddaughters can dream too big in America and, God forbid, pursue opportunities outside the home. From the perspective of the new right, those freedoms aren't progress. They are, in fact, the problem. So the solution the right proposes is to make those choices harder for women, much, much harder. Quote, the state and federal governments should recognize the natural differences between men and women. They should also preserve this distinction between the sexes in law. Preserve this distinction between the sexes in law. The law should discriminate against women. Put them back in their place. The plan goes on to discourage women from higher education. arguing that college delays marriage and reduces fertility, and it frames contraception itself as part of this so-called crisis. Quote, as nations industrialize, several factors conspire to reduce birth rates. These include the proliferation of birth control, more prospects for women to receive higher education and work outside the home, the delayed financial independence of young adults, and the government's role in old age Social Security, end quote. Translation? Women controlling their own fertility, women seeking higher education, women working outside the home, it's all just bad. But the agenda goes even further than that. The report calls for reshaping tax policy to reward large married families while cutting support for single mothers. This is taken right from Hungary's playbook, which offers income tax reductions for each additional child that you have. If you have 5 children in Hungary, you pay no tax. Unsurprisingly, no one took up the offer because no one actually wants to have 5 children in 2026. So Hungary reduced it to a tax-free life for just having 3 children starting last year. That too has failed because nobody wants 3 children in 2026 either. So starting this year, if you have just a paltry 2 children in Hungary, you pay no income tax for life. And since young women getting educated and staying unmarried are the real scourge of a society, starting this year in Hungary, if you're under 30 and you bring just one single life into this world, the rest of your happy maternal Hungarian life is tax-free. But I digress.
Okay, so let's stop right there.
I got to head to Hungary, give me some in vitro.
Yeah,
Oh, you under 30? Sorry, I missed it.
let's go.
Well, I'm a woman who could never have any children, so I guess I would just not get any benefits from all of that.
Yeah.
I can't either. I didn't just choose it, but when it came time, it never happened. So
Yeah, what about women that can't have children?
Right.
and I knew I had issues, but they said there might be a chance, but I had never been pregnant a day in my life, and it ain't from lack of trying. Yeah, I said it.
Can I just make a comment? Because I know that August got bumped off before I leave. Like I was saying, like we're going backwards. And my mother, the only reason why she lived in a time where she basically needed to get married to get out of the house, to be able to financially support herself. And definitely when she had kids, she was financially dependent on my father. I just think it is a crime to force women to have kids and be attached to a man that treats you horribly. That in order to, you have to be attached to a man to feed your children. It's unacceptable, and we should not be going back. We should only be going forward. And that's all I have to say. Good night.
Yeah. Marley.
Bye, Marley.
Yeah.
We can swap people in and out, Marley. So
Yeah.
you don't have
Okay.
to leave.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
I didn't want to
rotate. We can rotate people.
You
in and
swap
out.
me out if you need to bring August in, whatever. Just let me know.
It's again
Okay.
the wording of all of this in the Heritage Foundation, like in that, it's so dangerous. Because if you just read it for what it is, it's like, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. But again, if you're in this position like we are now, where we're digesting it and actually talking about it and doing research, that's where it gets so scary. And especially with like, you know, women have to stay with a man and stuff. That's going to lead to so much more crime, like abuse and murders and marital rape. And it's just, oh.
I don't
Deep sea, you right. I'm scared too, girl.
Yeah,
Oh,
the one thing
God.
Everybody can read this and say, even on the face of it, that it doesn't sound bad. Because if you read everything, it's all female centric. In the meantime, where are the men giving up to proliferate these perfect families, right?
Right.
We could always have people who the woman is outside of the house working and the man could stay at home and raise the children.
That's my house.
But they won't in there. And so I don't understand how anybody could even read this and just say on the face of it, oh, it doesn't sound that bad. Yes, it does. Why is all the onus on the women?
Well, you know what's interesting about it too? These men don't stay with any of these women to
Right.
be part of that family.
Right.
I'm sorry, look at Trump and his cronies. 3 wives, children there, not all over the place. Oh, please.
Yeah.
Also,
You know, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Katie.
Also, all these men who are making all of these decisions and rules for women, how many of them or their wives have actually raised their own children? Like, they've probably had nannies or babysitters or other family members do it because they didn't do it. They didn't want to do it.
Yeah. You know, when they were talking about tax breaks, I was at the grocery store this weekend. The people in front of me had 5 kids and 2 carts filled. And their grocery bill, and I'm very modest because it's just me. Their grocery bill was $475.86 for the 7 of them, and that was for 1 week because they had a couple of boys who were older. They're growing, and I couldn't believe how many gallons of milk was in the cart. I mean, when you think about the economics of it, who is going to be able to keep up essentially a $500 a week grocery bill for a family of 7?
Yeah, and the thing too is, I want to point this out. My mother, she left college, she wanted to be a nurse, and she met my dad, and she dropped out after her second year. And the one thing she instilled in all of her girls was like, I don't care how much it's going to take. All of you, there's 3 of us, will get a college degree because I do not want you to depend on a man. Even though my father is a wonderful man, wonderful husband, he really loves her. She wanted to make sure we were independent, because she did not want to see what happened with her mom and her grandmother and stuff, because, she wanted to be a nurse. She tried to go back to school. It did not work, but, what she did was great, because not only she encouraged us, but she was like demanding, you're going to get your college degree, and I have a brother, and, she encouraged the same thing. But, the thing is, she acknowledged that it will be easier for him, more. He's worked at Amazon. He's a millionaire right now, point blank. But with her girls, it's like, we have a teacher, I'm in e-discovery, my other sister's a lawyer, and we're still scratching by. It's just, I don't have to depend on a man or anything. I've been sporting a man for a long time, at home. But, this type of stuff really pisses me off because of the fact that I have 2 daughters. I want them to make their own mark in this world.
Well, I tell you what, I'm not going back. I am not going back to the time when women were more oppressed than we are now. Screw that. If we need to band together and start chopping off some male appendages to avoid this happening, we'll do so.
So let's talk
on March 28th.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about that. So let's talk about what they're claiming, right? So U.S. birth rate decline, which, by the way, is not just the U.S., it's worldwide. They're blaming it on a cultural problem. What they claim is that it's feminism, it's women working, it's higher education, it's birth control. What they're leaving out, which is what we are talking about now, is childcare cost, the housing crisis, student debt, healthcare care costs, and $500 grocery bills for 1 week for having all these children. So it's more, yes, an economic issue, as opposed to let's just blame it all on women, because why not? They're also, if anybody has a comment on that, go ahead while I get this, or here, let me go ahead.
There's a man at work I was talking to recently. I guess I'm at a new job, which I'm always at a new job. But anyway, he has 7 children. He is an advanced practitioner. His wife, I think he said, is as well. And I just met him, and with a few seconds, we had been talking about something. He was like, I gotta go to the grocery store. And he was like, I tell you what. And he was saying, I think he said it's like $4.15 a week just to get them started. And he's like, and they're getting bigger and bigger. And he's like, some of them are smaller, not eating as much, but there's 9 people to feed. And he's like, oh my goodness, something's got to give. And then the gas is down. And down here, like I said, where I was at, I was able to go to Walmart and get it for $2.48 at their center, but now it's way high, 3 something.
And they think they're going to do that with one income from the man?
Right.
No
Only?
way.
You can't do
Really?
it. They can't do it with 2 incomes, hardly, because they got mortgages and all that.
Well,
No.
Trump can do it because he's stealing the money. He's grifting us, and that's why he have the finances, because he was broke too. He's filed bankruptcy 5-6 times, so he don't have the money either. We need to give
It was 8 times.
He does now.
I just want to make a comment. I just think that it's time to have that serious conversation with your spouse, with your significant other, in regards to, hey, how do you feel about this Project 25 addiction? And how will it affect us? You got to have that hard conversation. You might be surprised in what you hear, and then you'll know how to move forward, because this is detrimental to so many people.
Yeah.
That's why so many single women out there.
There's a lot of
And when
women
I'm
go-
telling other,
We have
No,
a
speaking
man
of-
problem. We have a problem with men not being desirable to women. Like when you talk to women who are in Gen Z, actually talk to women of any generation.
Mhm.
They're more educated. They have hobbies. They have interests outside of men. They go to school. They volunteer. You listen to women talk about men. They're like, he wants me to pay for the dates. He doesn't have any hobbies. He doesn't have any friends. He seems to actually hate women. He spends all his time playing video games. He doesn't have good grammar. Like the list goes on. And I'm not saying this is all men, but we are advancing past the rate that a lot of men are, and they are not meeting us where we are. So our standards and who we are for ourselves has risen, and they're still here. And that's the problem. So instead of blaming us, let's
Big
focus
problem.
on getting men to be on par to where women are.
I've been
Yes.
talking to this guy recently, and I know he had a crush on me, and he kind of talked in my ear. But I noticed something happened. There's been a shift within this first couple weeks that I've known him, because he realizes I'm a serious person with other things other than just sitting around doing this or whatever. So I think that he thinks I'm too mature, and I'm kind of boss. I'm kind of there's time to be funny and there's time to take care of business. And I don't think he likes the business side of me. So he's like, ooh.
People always
My son said, "Mommy, how come you're not dating?" I said, "Because I haven't met anybody I want to be bothered with."
people always ask me, they're like, because my husband is 8 years older than I am. And people are always like, "Oh, doesn't that age difference bother you?" I'm like, "No, because when I was dating guys my age were freaking idiots. It's like you're lucky if they have the maturity of a high schooler while you're 22.
But them idiots come in every age group, unfortunately.
No, they do. And
Well,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure that we're not here bashing men, because
No.
We're not trying
there are a
to
lot of
bash
good men.
And
You're
you're
out there,
don't
you
stand
please
up
make
to
a
the
comment.
plate.
Yeah.
Then
A lot of
I
them
want to hear
stand up.
from you in regards to how you feel about what's going on Project
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking about it. And actually, that's
I
what
really
they
wanna
thought the
hear
other
how
day
you
when we
feel.
had the show with Katie. They thought we were male bashing, but it's not a male bashing. You're asking, why don't we want all these kids, right? And we're just telling the truth about why we don't want all these kids. We don't have compatible
Twice that there are good men out there, just for the record.
well,
Yeah.
and two, like
There are a
it's
lot of
also
good men.
important to
And they're
have these conversations with your spouse about like what do you think of this, but also especially too like if you have kids, like I have a daughter and I have another one coming, like that also affects them. It's not just you and your spouse.
Absolutely. And I have 2 boys, so that part is really important to me. So they're blaming it on those things that we talked about with women. They're also blaming it on something else, and I want to talk about this. So they're saying that the welfare state kickstarted the current crisis by punishing work and marriage. The welfare system has made marriage economically irrational for many low-income couples. Nearly all of the cash, food, and housing programs focus on subsidizing non-married single-parent families with the greatest benefits aimed at families that do not work. Moreover, all of the programs impose severe financial penalties on parents who choose to marry. These incentives are perverse. Marriage is one of the surest paths out of poverty and dependence, and improves the well-being of adults and children in society. If I have ever read a bunch of bullshit anywhere,
who wrote this
that's
crap?
it.
Is this the Miller guy that wrote this crap?
Stephen Miller.
No, there's two women who are on that panel that authored that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So what is wrong with them? Where is their brain? Did it get left in the refrigerator? I mean,
there were 10 women that helped write Project 2025, and one black man, and I always forget his name, but I got it wrote down. But there were women involved, and they used to tell us when I was growing up that an education was the way out, and your fathers would say it, your mothers would say it, and all of a sudden you telling me this man that is now with another woman, other children. See, they leave and they can start other families 10, 20 years later. We can't start a family 20 years later, and I don't want to, but we can't anyway.
Yeah. Anybody else before I would go back to Velshi?
No, it's just crazy. You know, it shouldn't matter about marriage or anything. It should matter about the parent. If they're, believe in their children, they want to raise their children the right way. That's what it comes down to. There's a lot of great people that are not together. They're co-parenting so beautifully. And this is just ludicrous. It's just, again, to pigeonhole people based on things that they can't control and say it's bad.
Absolutely. So let's continue.
Because this isn't quite Hungary yet. Here in America, this proposal, akin to Hungary's, proposes eliminating childcare incentives that help women work outside the home. It supports legal frameworks that could effectively ban in vitro fertilization by granting legal rights to embryos from the moment of fertilization. It criticizes no-fault divorce, the laws that make it easier for women to leave abusive marriages. Taken together, the America they envision looks very different from the one most Americans live in today, a society organized around a rigid patriarchal structure, men as providers, women as dependents, and very few ways out. Consider this line from the report, which attempts to explain the country's declining birth rate. Quote, today's adults may favor autonomy and personal development over raising children more than earlier generations did. Thus, greater opportunity cost rather than the greater actual cost might be a better explanation. Translation, women today have opportunities their grandmothers could only dream of. They can pursue education, careers, independence, lives that extend beyond marriage and motherhood. From the perspective of the new right, that's the crisis. As the writer Jill Filipovich has warned, quote, they see women being able to control our own fertility as the root of the problem. They're right. Women being able to control our own fertility is one of the most powerful tools women have for independence. Women who cannot control their own fertility are under greater patriarchal control. The right has already succeeded in stripping the right to abortion from American women. It was never about saving babies. It was entirely about forcing women back into submission. Trust that when they identify contraception as a tool that shoulders a large share of the blame for the present malady, they are telling you that they are coming for contraception next. Historically speaking, we've seen versions of this before. In the 1920s, Benito Mussolini launched a campaign in fascist Italy known as the Battle for Births. The goal was to increase the population and strengthen the nation. Women were pushed out of jobs. Families were rewarded for having more children. Motherhood was glorified, while women's independence was deliberately restricted. The new rights version is wrapped in the language of religious revival and family stability. But underlying logic is strikingly similar. If women aren't producing enough children, the answer is not to make parenthood easier with things like childcare and paternal and maternal leave and education subsidies. The answer is to make women's independence harder. And the people promoting this vision aren't even hiding their goals. Scott Yenner, a conservative political scientist recently appointed to a senior leadership role at the Heritage
Oh
Foundation,
God, not this
has
guy.
described universities
No.
as the citadels of our gynecocracy, meaning a society run by women. He argues that higher education should be de-emphasized in order to advance what he calls family matters. In a 2021 speech at the National Conservatism Conference, he went even further, suggesting that women should be pushed out of large parts of the workforce.
Get ready to
Every
vomit.
effort must be made not to recruit women into engineering, but rather to recruit and demand more of men who become engineers. Ditto for med school and the law and every trade. If every Nobel Prize winner is a man, that's not a failure.
Oh my
It's
God.
kind of a cause for celebration.
I want to smack the smirk
Why
off his
can't
face.
our celebration
I do
of
too.
male excellence in sports be translated into all facets of life? More
Love it.
successful men will mean more happy citizenry and a stronger nation.
Oh my God.
Happy men equal a strong nation.
Oh my
That's
God.
better, by the way. In that same speech, that's a serious speech. It's not a satire. Yenner attacked women who prioritize careers over family and revealed something else about his thinking that should frighten everyone. Listen.
Such medicated, quarrelsome, and meddlesome women gain their meaning through the seeming participation in the global project. They are agents of the new world, but not new life. Such women are now the backbone of every left-wing cosmopolitan party in the Western world,
Let's
Get
go,
the hook.
from the Greens in
Let's go,
Germany
Kitty.
to the Democratic Party in America.
Oh,
And if our ideal woman is a childless media scold or a barren bureaucratic apparatchik, there is no question whether we can have a future. We can't. There is a question of whether we deserve one.
There is a question of whether we deserve a future. Setting
Oh,
aside the
God.
misogyny, contempt dripping from that rant, that line should send a chill down your spine because it reveals something profound about the worldview behind this movement. Who exactly is the we that he's talking about? Certainly not the meddlesome women he condemns for finding meaning outside the home. Yenner seems to believe that he and men like him are fully entitled to dictate and hold ownership over women's futures. And this isn't some fringe internet rant. This same line of thinking now sits inside the leadership ranks of the Heritage Foundation, the same group helping shape policy for the Trump administration. Yenner's comments reveal another political calculation behind this agenda. Educated women and women who make independent decisions about their lives tend to vote Democratic. Yenner seems to think that's because Democrats throw great parties. But the reality is much simpler. Many Americans, men and women, who don't believe society should be organized around patriarchy, racial superiority, or religious nationalism, tend to gravitate toward the party that defends civil rights, pluralism, and personal freedom. For men of the new right like Yenner, policies that push women out of universities, out of the workforce, and out of public life don't just force women back into the home, they fundamentally reshape political power, which is why this agenda is not just about culture. It's about control over women's futures, because these far-right extremists and the movement surrounding Donald Trump, the real problem is women themselves. Women who think, women who choose. And they may think things and choose things that threaten the power structure of the new right. So their answer is to push women back into their place, to strip away their autonomy, to push them out of public life, to narrow the futures available to them. Ultimately, this agenda is not really about solving demographic decline. If increasing the natural replacement rate was the actual goal, the proposals would actually look very different. Countries around the world face falling birth rates, and they've taken very different approaches. They expand childcare.
Let's talk about this for a minute because he's 100% right.
Yep.
If we, let me hang on because I know there's a lot to talk about here. If we look at really why families delay having children, it's economic. Childcare, if you look at the United States, between $12,000 and $20,000 a year. Healthcare, high insurance, medical costs, even higher now. For most states, there is no parental leave, maternity, much less paternity. And I'm very lucky my son got paternity leave. Housing is through the roof, college. But if you look at Sweden and France and Denmark, they aren't having these issues because they have paid parental leave. They have subsidized childcare. They have universal healthcare. They have housing support. They have child tax credits and allowances. So family policy strongly influences the economic decision to have children. Do you or do you not agree?
I agree 100%. At one point it was like $350,000 in a life, for your child's lifetime from 0 to 18. Times that by 3, times that by 5, times that by 10. It adds up. And even now, because unfortunately our economy is not in the greatest place, and employment is in a recession, I still have to support my daughters because they still can't find those jobs that were used to be out there because they're gone now.
Yeah. We can't hear you, Anita. Oh, go ahead.
They're going to continue to go because depending on what their major is, because of AI, I'm going to do a little something on that next week. But I think that we have to look at what they're saying because we have to know the plan. But I'm somebody who's very critical of people who have a lot of children that they can't afford, basically. And when I say afford, I'm talking about within reason. I know you can never afford. And I always say, on my paternal side, there was 13 kids. On my maternal side, there was 6, as far as my uncles and aunts. And so I look at that and I'm like, she was pregnant for half her life or more than half of her life. And I tell people, we for the first time in the last 20, 30, 40 years, been able to control our birth rate by having birth control, if that's what you choose. However, we don't appreciate it because it's always been there. And it could be taken away at any time. And then those that choose to. So anyway, I just feel like we have a lot more say so in our birth rate, and we should keep it because it makes a difference because you're not, half pregnant for half your life, and you can pursue other things like hobbies and jobs, but they have to make economic decisions that support that because we're not going back in the kitchen.
Nope.
Well, I hate too that there's to them there's one definition for everything. So it's like, oh, birth control is just birth control. It's not, about the women that have endometriosis or PO or PCS or what it's called. I
PCOS.
forget. Sorry, thank you. Oh, tired. Or other things with, it can counteract with certain medications and how dangerous it can be for certain women to get pregnant. It's like there's not just this one main definition for things, and they view abortion the same way too. And so they just and something that bothers me too in this country is you get a tax credit per child. It's like, ooh, what's that extra $2,000 gonna get me for the rest of the year? So they don't care, and they don't realize how much everything costs, because it's not just the food or the clothes. You've got the doctor's appointments, you've got the activities that they're in, you've got the sports that they play, and all this stuff isn't free.
I like to piggyback off of what Anitra said about birth control. When my mother married my father, pretty much immediately he told her that he wanted to have a baby. She didn't have at the time, abortion wasn't legal, so it wasn't really like she had a choice. He was basically telling her what he wanted, and she had to do it. I think personally, just based off my knowing my father, I think he did it to trap her. So I think birth control is really important because it gives the woman choice. It gives her autonomy over her body. My mother always says, right now, that my grandmother would be proud of the way I live because I'm single, never had to get married, never had kids, so I have freedom. When my grandmother, during her time, there was no birth control. If she got pregnant, she had to have those kids, and she got pregnant a lot, and not all of them survived, and was hard on her. And I don't know, you guys. I think Americans women are really spoiled, And
We are.
obviously, we were spoiled based on how a lot of women voted. And it's very scary that they're trying to turn back the hands of time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I said this on the episode that we did when we talked about this the first time, about how what scares me is that there are going to be women who hear what the Heritage Foundation is planning and think it sounds good because they're thinking about the tax credits and the money that's going to be dangled in front of them. And they're not going to think about what's lying underneath that, all of this sinister stuff that is designed to oppress us and keep us chained to men that we may not want to be with and in positions that don't benefit us. And I also look at that guy and I think, who the F are you to tell us what we need to be doing? Who made anybody of importance to tell us what we need to be doing? And I go back to, this feels like we're going to be in a war for our own humanity, for our own self-possession. And I'm look, I don't want to be at war with Iran. I want to be at war with that guy.
Okay.
Well, you got that.
I want to know what woman broke his heart so bad,
Or
Yeah.
that he's never willingly touched a woman in his life.
you have to wonder where that's coming from.
Yeah.
Let's finish up with Velshi, and then we'll wrap up.
Guarantee paid paternal leave for mothers, maternal or paternal leave for mothers and for fathers. They make housing more affordable. They support working mothers. This plan proposes none of that. Instead, it calls for shrinking the social safety net, especially the programs that allow women to live independently. If women have fewer options, the thinking goes, they'll have more children. They'll be bound more tightly to the men in their lives with fewer ways out. This is about dragging the country back to a time when women had only one choice: to submit to men.
Yep.
Project 2025 has already shown us how quickly the far right can move their ideas into government policy. And the architects of these plans are not fringe figures. They are inside the administration. The CIA director, John Ratcliffe, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, the SEC chair, Paul Atkins, the trade advisor, Peter Navarro, and Russell Vought, one of the chief authors of Project 2025, who now runs the office that oversees the federal budget. The men behind this draconian vision are already in power, which means the stakes for America's women are very real. But history also tells us something else. As my next guest, Kathy Spiller, puts it, the United States has faced coordinated backlash against women's rights before. And every time women have organized, they've resisted, they have reshaped the nation. The women who fought for suffrage did not stop when they were dismissed as unreasonable. The women who pushed Title IX into law did not stop when they were told girls didn't need equal opportunities. The women who built the modern reproductive rights movement did not stop when the courts narrowed their freedoms, and we will not stop now. End quote.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We will not stop at all. At all. So I actually had a lot more education on this, but I think everybody gets the gist on this and what we need to fight back on. And so any other, well, wait, I have one more to show, and then I'm going to let August is up. I'll go backstage while August does August on the Move, while we can get everybody up here. What he's talking about are the policy levers. And I remember, Keisha, and I think you responded, someone in the comments on the other video, the segment that you did, said, this is fear mongering. This is never going to happen. This is, I forget the exact words, but I remember that you're saying this Project 2025, a lot of it has already been implemented. And so what they're proposing are policy changes. So a marriage policy, marriage incentives, fatherhood programs, welfare tied to family structure, education policy, undermining universities, de-emphasizing higher education, promoting traditional pathways, and their reproductive policy, abortion restrictions, contraception pressure, fetal rights expansion. And all this means fewer independent pathways for us, reduced economic mobility, increased dependence on the family structure. It gives us limited choice. Harder to live independently, harder to leave relationships, fewer alternatives outside traditional roles. So this is not fear mongering. This is what they are planning. And these are the people who are in power. So any last comments on this before we switch to August on the Move, and I'll go backstage while somebody else can come up.
Yeah, this promotes more violence against women. 120%. I'm sorry. We're going to see an uptick in domestic violence, deaths, abuse, rape, and that's what it's promoting.
We
It's
need to
real, it's
vote.
alive, it's a living thing, and it's not hyperbole. It's not just making up stuff and trying to scare people, scaremongering or whatever, fear mongering. It's real.
And we need to vote. We need to get the word out. People have to vote in November. No, if you are afraid to go, call a friend and have them go with you. And there's safety in numbers, but we have to vote. We've got to send a message to these people. We're not going to do this anymore.
Absolutely. Anybody else? We're going to talk about No Kings coming up on the 28th.
We can't see
Yeah,
you.
I want to say that I talk a lot about the matriarchy coming, and I want to reiterate, one, there are lots of wonderful men out there. I don't want that to get lost in this conversation. When the matriarchy takes over, because it is going to happen, it is not about women being on top and oppressing men. It is about the benefit of the greater collective working together in a cooperative fashion so that everyone can prosper and flourish. And that is what we should be focused on. Not
Righting
making
those wrongs.
or
Exactly.
women better than the other. We need to work on making a better world for all of us to prosper.
Well said, Keisha.
100%.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Anybody else before we move?
To the men out there, we just want you to like and subscribe. Hug your wife, hug your significant other, because we're hugging you.
See that? August is on the move. Woohoo!
Absolutely.
All right,
you, guys.
August, it's all yours.
Thank you, guys. I am back, and my topic today is definitely going to shake it up a little bit. There's been a lot of talk out there, and in this one, just really touch home. Let's see if it will play for us tonight. All right. Watch the face, watch the body language, and you tell me.
It's not playing in August.
Do we have it? Well, everybody out there, while
Over
we're
child.
Why
are you?
It's not playing.
I love
it.
it.
It was, but I
No
love her, by
sound.
the way. She's amazing.
She's awesome. I saw this. It's awesome.
Okay,
No
let's try
sound.
it again.
Oops.
Let me see if I can
Everybody,
bring it back to
please
the stage.
like and subscribe. Become a member if you are so inclined. And help us get our content out to more people.
This man is about to try to defend predators, and the second I saw this woman give him this face as he tries to do it, I knew I was about to straight woman fall in love with her. I know nothing else about this woman, but after watching this, she could run for president tomorrow and she would have my vote.
Should follow the law, but let's not get our knickers in a twist here. There's no
Let's not
punishment
get our
for this.
knickers in a twist over child. Why are you talking like that? It's insane. It's insane. The Epstein Files
What's the
is
thing?
a multinational, multi-generational child and woman trafficking ring. So your attitude right now, you're sort of like, well, shucks, devil begun, is just horrifying to me.
This poor little guy looks like he's never been so shocked in his whole life. But she's not done with him yet, completely making my day, if not my entire year.
Every woman in the world that is watching this Why are you acting like you have no idea what's happening here? Scott,
He asked me a question about following the law.
And what I'm
I said they
saying
should
to you
follow
is
the
your
law.
attitude. Yes, and they're not following the law. They're 30 days late on following law, and they didn't explain why they redacted the first things in the first place, which they were also supposed to do.
I know.
Listen,
you
at
have
this
a strong
point, this is
opinion
not.
about it,
I
and
have a strong
respect
opinion
that.
about it because it is a
But I think they
disgusting
should do it
policy
as
that they are
fast as
doing
they
this.
can.
They are hiding it. It is not the behavior of innocent people, and everything that is in these files it could bring an entire house down. And if it has to, it has to. If it brings down princes, world leaders, Hollywood people, bring them down. But what it feels like right now is that there's a giant cabal of people that do not have to listen to the law, do not have to oppose the law, and they were supposed to do something, then they didn't do something, and now they're trying to have a new law that says we don't even have to do it.
This man is a
All right. So I wanted to bring Epstein back into the fold. We need to make sure that we continue to talk about Epstein files because that's what they think they're getting away with it with the war on Iran. Please remember that, everyone. We need to make sure that we keep these people honest. Scott Jennings, he's another one. I'm pretty sure he's all in for Project 2025. So we need to make sure that we hold them accountable. Let's hear from the panel and tell me what you think.
I'm so tired of Scott Jennings having a platform.
Oh, yeah.
He's the same on every episode. And there's a YouTube guy that I follow. His name is Couch Politics. And he just he analyzes all of these shows that Scott is on with Abby Phillip. And it's all just a joke to him. That's just what it seems like. And he just does it for the faces and the. It's just so frustrating. So good on her. I think her name is Lee something or
Leanne,
other.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and
She's from
she
California.
good
she lives
on
in
her.
Southern California.
Political girl.
Absolutely.
Politics
Anyone
girl.
else?
Or is it politics or political?
Politics girl. I think it's because she
Politics
used to do all these Instagram or whatever, and people just go, oh, that's
Yes.
that politics girl, right?
Oh,
And kind of stuck.
Yeah, and she's still on Instagram. She still has her channel on that.
That's
She's
right,
popular
Army.
on Threads.
That's right,
Yeah,
Angry
YouTube
Army. That's
Shorts.
Epstein. You
Epstein.
guys, let's not get distracted by this war. Yes, it's bad, but the bottom line is the women and young ladies have not received any, I mean, no gratification on this. And the men think that a war is going to take us off track. This is why they want to take us back to 1930, 1920, because they want us to have their way and do what they want to do. Not all men. I am not generalizing. Like Keisha said, we love our men, we love our spouses. However, it's time to have that conversation. Well, also, we need to talk about and bring this one to the stage because I want us to definitely remember why we need to take this back.
Since you were in red. So tell us about this, Jackie.
I'm taking the color red back just like I'm taking the flag back, honey. But no, it means a lot. So I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Barbara C. Jordan was also a member of our sorority. Our colors are crimson and cream, so it's typically seen as red and white. But Barbara Jordan means so much to me, and on this ticket, these are all quotes of hers throughout the years. She was one of the most eloquent members of the United States Congress, but she also served on the Judiciary Committee when the Nixon impeachment was happening. And she made one of the most eloquent arguments for why it is that Nixon needed to be impeached. At that time, people thought that they had seen real corruption, and I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but the levels of corruption that we have reached right now pale in comparison. And so as someone who also serves as only the fourth African-American woman to go to the United States House from the state of Texas and serves on the Judiciary Committee in this moment and in this time, I just felt like this was the inspiration that I needed to wrap myself in on today. So today is a nod to Barbara C. Jordan, but also just so many other fierce women that came before me. I've been talking about Ann Richards a lot because she was fierce. She was plain spoken, and she was a woman. And she was the last Democrat to serve in the gubernatorial mansion. And yeah, that was back in the 90s. So I just want Democrats to understand that maybe it takes a woman to get it done, because that's the last time we got it done statewide for a Democrat. So, I have, I've been really encouraged by both of them. So I have Barbara Jordan and I have Ann Richards on my bus, and I have famous quotes of theirs. So they are my inspiration.
All right, everybody, let's make sure we're taking the color back. Make sure we're taking that color back. The color is red. Make sure we take it back. Let them know that it's not about the color, it's about the meaning, what we stand for. We need to stand up for each and every one of us, for our men, and also for our families out there. Last but not least, I did want to talk about Miss Tulsi Gabbard this evening to close it out. She never did answer the question, and they are all complicit, and they all need to go to jail. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Back over to you, Kim.
Oh, yeah.
Article 2, Section 4, right, Andrea?
Right. Get him out of here, the entire cabinet, him first.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Let's go.
what I see with men is not all men. Again, we're not talking about all men, but some men, when they don't get their what they want, if they don't get what they want, they start wars, they start conflict, they beat their wives, or they do something destructive instead of saying, let's sit down and talk about this.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately for these particular men, women have been multitasking for centuries. And so they cannot distract us with a war or with anything else that they can throw at the fan, because we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We've been doing it for centuries.
Absolutely.
Forgot to mention, sorry, Kim.
Go ahead.
One thing I forgot to mention is
I just said amen, sister.
it benefits us all to be on equal footing. Think about how far behind we would be if we didn't have the inventions that women created, or that Black people created, or that Indian people created. Like, we need each other to get ahead as humans. So back to that guy whose appendage I would like to see chopped off. I don't remember his name. He doesn't matter. We need women's brains. It is not enough just for men to be the inventors and to win the prizes. We need all of us. We all have something to contribute to the society.
Because that same man that's complaining, he's not at home cooking. He's not making sure, he's not nursing that sick child that's at home. All he is, he's out with Trump, trying to take away people's rights. He's not at home with the family.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, so a couple things before we head out. I know Andrea has a clip she would like to show, or have me show.
I keep hearing that it's not enough for Democrats to say what they were against. We should also say what we are for. And that is honestly a very good point. So let me start. What I am against is Donald Trump and everything he represents. What I am for is getting rid of Donald Trump and everything he represents. Glad I can clear that up. I keep hearing that it's not enough.
I love it. I love
like
it.
his hat.
Should we sing it? Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
Exactly.
When I heard that, I said, oh, that's a good one.
No, it
That
is.
is a good one.
It is.
Blank, blank, period.
So who knows what's coming up? March 28th.
No kings.
No kings.
March 28th. No kings, everybody. No kings. 3,000 locations for this. This is expected to be the largest one yet. So go to nokings.org and find an event near you based on this map. It shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
They will be everywhere. They also have, I just want to point out, they have trainings. So I think these are important. If you go to the website, Know Your Rights, right? They have a kickoff call, how to be safe, etc. So I would encourage everyone to go take a look at the website. One other little thing before we go, and then we will sign off, is we have for the protest, if you so choose, we now have merchandise. Yay! So we the people unite. If you again feel inspired and would like to, number one, show support for democracy. This is about democracy. Everything we do here is about standing for this country, for democracy, for equal rights, for our freedoms, etc. So if you would like some merch to go along on the protest, we have it. We'll put the link in the description. And I think last but not least, what? As right? So which one? I don't know, because gas keeps going up. I love this. I lost track. Who are we blaming?
Oh, yeah.
For Obama for this? I don't know. They're going to blame somebody. And this one is really important. I don't think people realize.
Yeah, how much?
People
How much
realize.
Yeah,
Thank you,
the
Army,
grift.
Angry Army
This has
vet.
been the biggest grift.
The
Right?
grift masterclass.
He can afford $400 a week in groceries. We can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but hey, but Andrea, he's eating all that lobster and stuff from Cake Seth.
Oh, yes.
And did you know they're still trying to stop him from building that ballroom now, and it's going to court again on April 2nd.
Great.
Well, the Hatch Act helped out. Not too much, because the Supreme Court said he had immunity as president.
Well, no, we're going to get rid of them too.
Only for official acts.
For official acts. Yeah, not for this. They're going to court.
So
in his
they
mind,
in the brief, they told him this is not his home. He only is there for a moment.
Correct. And for me, it is not an official act when you break your oath of office and you go against the Constitution.
That's
For
right.
me, that is not an official
And
act.
that's what he was sworn to do, but he wouldn't lift his hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was there a long time ago.
Kim,
All
are
right.
we going to broadcast live for this next No Kings?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
We
still
like
live.
to. Yeah, we have the last few, so I would hope that we do that again. We'll talk about it. We will broadcast something. I don't know if we'll all be, who will be out, but we will broadcast the protest somehow.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So do that. Any other parting words before we head off? We obviously want to thank everybody in the chat.
Thank
For
you.
your contribution today, for listening. I know this was long, but it's such an important topic, ladies.
One person can make a difference.
Absolutely. Anybody
Share the
else
word.
before we go?
Spread the wealth. Share it.
Sucks.
Yes.
Right. Power to women. Yes, ma'am. All right, everybody. Thank you again for joining. Come and see us on Friday. Same time. Was it
You
same
later.
bat time? Same bat channel? If you grew up in my area.
Bye.
No.
We the people unite.